Hey, folks, it's Spoilerin time. This is the show where all that hard work we do on Cordkillers, the other show we do, talking about the devices, the services, the upcoming shows, pays off. It all pays off, and we watch some shows, and we talk about them right here. We are rewatching Firefly. We're going to talk about the episode Shindig. We're watching Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 4. Preacher, Season 2, Episode 7. Rick and Morty, the 3rd episode of Season 3. And Brian saw The Dark Tower. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian.
Heck yeah, man. I've got thoughts. I got lots of thoughts. Chief among which is we need to pick a time and a date for the winter movie draft. But I guess, is this it? Do we just wrap up the summer movie draft?
We should probably play the summer movie draft.
If only, wait, what? Oh, there it is. Oh, Dr. Ken.
The season ends on September 1st. We have no more new movies out. Dark Tower was the last one on the slate. So now we're in the 4-week period where Dark Tower just racks up the millions and Frog Pants races towards the top. We are building on its $19.5 million opening.
I'm going to call it, man. I think Night Attack weathered the storm, and we're going to defeat Big and Tall. I don't think they're going to overtake us for number 2. DTNS, of course, a well-earned victory, largely on the back of betting so heavily on Wonder Woman. Congratulations on that. $777 million, $100 million
if you called the number one best buy in the entire draft betting heavily, sure.
You bet heavier than anyone else did, and it was the right call.
Yeah, that's true. That's the definition. That is the true of every single movie in the draft.
Yeah, right. Night Attack in second place at 645. We'll let you know if that changes, but I think it's wrapped up. Big and Tall, $24 million behind that. Scotch Bros at 430. Frog Pants at 411. Cordkillers, Team Cordkillers at 396. Congratulations to, wow, holy cow, we do have a single winner in the Chat Realm League.
Wow.
Last minute, he blew through the two-way ties that had been at the top because of Girls Trip.
That's right.
He picked up Girls Trip at the end and won up by $5 million. That's A. Hester.
A. Hester, on behalf of all of Team Night Attack, you're welcome. We'd like to think it was our hype engine that made Girls Trip your best buy.
Catch it.
Props to Girls Trip. I was, at the beginning of this season, looking at the slate saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if it came down to Girls Trip versus Atomic Blonde? I was feeling super good about Atomic Blonde, getting all these great reviews and marketing. Girls Trip blew Atomic Blonde out of the water.
Yeah.
$85 million to $34 million.
I overheard random people on the street talking about Girls Trip, man. It's a genuine phenom. Congrats to everyone who played, and we will get you a date of when the winter movie draft. How close is the commissioner? Do you have an inside track into?
She is not home at the moment.
Okay,
but I will bring it up. I will raise it with her this evening while we are rewatching more Game of Thrones.
Right
which
on.
brings us to our first spoiler in entry. Yesterday, Brian and I were like, yes, we should see The Dark Tower because we always have talked about The Dark Tower. We're even reading The Gunslinger for Sword and Laser this month.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm like, you're entirely right, Brian. It's going to be difficult though because reasons, and those reasons that I didn't make entirely clear to Brian in my text messages were Eileen and I are having a lot of fun rewatching the entire back seasons of Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's fun.
We came down to your text messages coming in the middle of the day while we're watching Game of Thrones, and then me going, Eileen, I really should see The Dark Tower. She's like, well, do you have to see it right now? I'm like, well, we could go see it 2:00. She's like, yeah, but we need to walk the dogs. I'm like, all right. And then I have to be back by Twin Peaks because I'm doing the Twin Peaks podcast. So you're right. I'll watch it this evening after Twin Peaks is all in the can.
You know what's really weird?
What's that?
Well, the movie did the exact same thing. Idris Elba, he's like, I should really go hunt down the Dark Tower, save humanity. And then Cuthbert's we could walk a dog.
Podcast, and then after the Twin Peaks podcast, sit down with his wife and say, I'm supposed to go see the Dark Tower. And Eileen's like, great, have fun. I'm going to keep watching Game of Thrones. And we go, that sounds like more fun. I think I'm going to stay here.
Yeah, and he unbuckles his guns, his father's guns, sets them off to the side. He's like,
I do not watch Game of Thrones with my eyes.
Hey, I got a question for you, Tom.
Yeah.
Number one, there's no way either you nor I, for those of you guys who don't know the backstory, I forced physically cajoled Tom Merritt into a year-long journey into the complete Dark Tower epic story, which not only
forced me to read The Gunslinger. That's true. After that, I was hooked.
Yes, exactly. And if you don't know, that includes a bunch of crossover novels that tell various parts of the story. It's a very big, epic, sweeping story. There's no way for us to talk about this movie without our personal experiences being carried into it. I don't know what it looks like to somebody who's never seen the show, but or who's never read the books. I'll bet it's not very good to them. I'll bet it's a middling, cliche thing. But existentially, let me ask you this, Tom. Does the existence of a separate entity themed on something diminish the original in general? By which I mean, and I've teased this metaphor on Weird Things. If Universal Studios got the exclusive rights to a Game of Thrones theme park ride, and it's a 10-minute journey, my guess is that you would have production quality not as good as the original, a story vastly simpler than the original, not all the characters from the actual Game of Thrones, just which ones you could cobble together, and sort of a hackneyed on-the-nose presentation of everything. I would imagine that that it begins with Tyrion Lannister walking in digitally projected and saying, "Oh, you must be the missing Targaryen. Let's get you to the wall." And then your ride would shake, and then out would walk, "I'm Jon Snow, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch." And then you'd feel a blast of cold air on your face. And be like,
"Oh, I mean, honestly, before you should probably trademark this design or copyright it or something, because it sounds pretty good." But the Harry Potter ride at Universal Studios is exactly what you're talking about. Right? There's all this stuff while you're waiting in line that kind of gives you a little story. And then you walk in the first chamber and there's Harry and Hermione and Ron telling you, "Uh-oh, someone stole the book. We better go." And then, you get on the ride and there's a bit of a story, but it's really just a roller coaster.
Right. And the difference is in the world of theme park rides, that is among the very best, whether you've read the Harry Potter books or seen the Harry Potter movies or not. It's just a really good theme park ride. This is a very middling theme park ride that happens to be about a property that is very, very precious to me. And
you're saying the Dark Tower movie
yes.
is like a theme park ride?
Yes. And I love the Dark Tower enough that I'm going to get on that theme park ride and I'm be like, it's an average theme park ride, but I give it plus 2 points because I like the Dark Tower a lot. And that's what it felt like. There was like 2 moments that I chuckled. There was a couple of visual elements that I thought were pretty creative. There's this casual adjusting of faces that are barely containing something uglier underneath, where it's like, oh, that's right, we're supposed to look human, so they adjust their faces back into place. Unfortunately, so much of the storytelling is so hand-holdy, on the nose, just treating you like you have to have everything explained to you. And the worst part is it's only slightly longer than a Doctor Who episode and only feels like there was maybe a couple $1 million more put on it than a Doctor Who episode. And it literally ends with a Rick and Morty-esque, "Hey, kid. Hey, Jake Chambers. I'm going on more wacky adventures. I'm the dimension-hopping gunslinger. You seem like you've got the goods. You want to come along?" Yeah.
And Jake says, "Go then. There are other worlds than these."
Man, that wouldn't be bad if he's like, "Get bent, jerk." It's not the Dark Tower series. It's not the Dark Tower story. It's not there. And the fact that that's the case makes it all the more curious that they bother to get so many little details correct. Stuff like you keep seeing is it NCP?
North Central Positronics.
Yeah, North Central Positronics. You see throughout, and the bad guys are located in the Dixie Pig? Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. They portray it as the Man in Black is basically running this industrial operation to tear apart the fabric of humanity, which I can get. You get the impression they've been doing it for a very long time, which I also get. You could probably convey that in a really interesting way if all of these bizarre menagerie of creatures were bored of their job. Like, yeah, that's what we do. We're destroying the fabric of humanity. But instead, everybody's really excited about what's happening, and they're all explaining it to each other constantly. And as a result, the things that the Dark Tower are best at are just not present here. You know, the sleepy, dreamlike quality, the constantly feeling adrift, like you don't understand, your footing's always a little bit off. None of that is present. Having said that, you know, Idris Elba's costume design's cool. There's a brief moment. There's less gun fu than I was hoping for. You know, you watch the Man in Black pick up a pink ball at one point, and you're like, ooh, I know what that means. And that's about it. Real bummer.
Well, one of the things that I did do because I had extra time from not going to see the Dark Tower was watch a story about a guy who turned himself into a pickle.
Okay. Before we get to that, let me just make one suggestion.
Was there anything in the Dark Tower movie that was as entertaining as a guy who turned himself into a pickle?
No, there really wasn't. but let me say this: in an alternate universe, in an alternate universe, I think they really could have done well if they had just taken the Little Sisters of Illyria, which is a very small, sleepy Western vampire story that I think could have been very well told in 2 hours, that would have taken place in Midworld, but not been about selling Midworld to everyone. And I think it could have been a really good first step in that direction. And I'm bummed that they didn't do that.
Yeah, I can see why you wouldn't do that first, though, because the theory would be, well, the Dark Tower fans might come to see this, but they're going to be upset that they're not getting the gunslinger. So it's not the best move to open with, because marketing wise, people who don't know the Dark Tower might not see it because they're like, I don't know what this is. And it's riskier, right? Because we just have to sell it as a vampire movie. And people who do know the Dark Tower might not go see it because they're disappointed that it's not the gunslinger. It's not the Dark Tower. And instead what we got is, it sounds like kind of, I think your carnival ride metaphor seems pretty apt. Like, I get what this movie is going to be like without having seen it yet, because it's like, okay, so a lot of people are going to come on stage and tell me who they are and what their motivations are.
Yeah, and it's not going to be subtle or even that much fun. You're just going to be shaking around a lot. Anyway, I don't regret having seen it. I think some of the images will stick around. I think Idris Elba is not stunningly phenomenal as Roland. He didn't redefine the character to me, but he's very good. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not even going to say I'm glad it exists. I'll tell you what did bother me quite a bit was seeing second billing, produced by Ron Howard right in those credits, like directed by whoever, produced by Ron Howard, big as day, which just made me think, how do I feel about him taking over the Han Solo movie?
Oh, yeah, but he's produced so many other things. You're not going to judge the Han Solo movie on that. Right?
No, but my
he's
confidence...
directing the Han Solo movie. He was a producer. He got his name slapped on the Dark Tower. So
but keep in mind how long he's kept his name associated with that project for as long as you and I.
Well, yeah, because if you've spent that long working on something, you want to cut of the check no matter what, right?
Yeah, I forgot about that aspect of it. There's that weird credit Hollywood thing. Anyway, let's talk about Pickle Rick.
Pickle Rick. Okay, so when I saw Pickle Rick in the trailer for this season, I was fine. I was like, we're going to see Rick turn into a pickle. It's going to be at the beginning of an episode. It's going to be a little bit, and then the adventure will take off. Here we go. We watch this episode. It's Pickle Rick. I'm like, okay, they're going off to family counseling. How's Rick going to get out of it? Well, it turns out how he gets out of it is to stay Pickle Rick, which then becomes the entire subplot, or maybe main plot, of this entire episode, told in brilliant action movie fashion. I mean, I just watched John Wick 2. I think Pickle Rick might have been better.
Yeah, which it's a real testament. Not only, first of all, the writing is brilliant because they take what could have been, when they said Pickle Rick in the previews, I'm like, it's going to be like Tiny Rick. It'll just be a thing everyone shouts. But instead, they made it a completely bizarre side element to it, but to serve a very important element to the story about his closed offness from his family. Really, the whole episode is really about the therapy session they go to and the brilliant insight insights that come from the therapist. But blended with that is this insane, against all odds, believable way that Pickle Rick goes from being thrown in a gutter to destroying a Russian consulate and stealing money. It's amazing. It's unreal. And then you think it's over when he's won, but instead he shows up at the therapy meeting and sits down as Pickle Rick.
And the thing is, when he first got washed into the drain, I'm like, oh, he's going to show up at the therapy meeting, right? This is going to wash him out somehow through a vent or something. And then he bites the roach and attaches the brains. I'm like, oh, okay, no, we're going to get an entire side story of terribly unrealistic science, but who cares, because it's an amazing adventure that involves, like you said, the Russian consulate and spies and action memes. And yet, then after I've forgotten about my original thought, they're like, oh no, but he is going to end up at the therapy session, because that is the dark comedy main thrust of this episode.
Sunday best Morty and Summer is amazing. Just seeing them just so withdrawn and not knowing what to do. And on my second viewing,
there's so many good little bits too. Like when Morty opens the album, is like, why are there pictures of people eating poop? And the therapist just takes the album and sticks it under a chair.
Well, and says
doesn't even comment.
Yeah, well, and says because I am accepting of all types. And there you go. Bryce pulled it up. This was my favorite part, is the setup where it's like you have one of those successories posters that says courage, and it shows a guy eating a hot dog, and it's like, what is courageous about eating a hot dog? And then when she moves in, or she brings everyone to the office, she flips it from courage, like the courage to eat real food instead of poop, to her other job, which is, family counseling. So good. So good. So well crafted. Deserving of a second view for sure. It's pretty great.
Let's move on to Preacher. And we are in the post-Saint of Killers era.
Are we?
Well, he's been buried, so we need a new villain for this episode, right?
Well, yes, but I guess I was playing coy when I said "are we," because obviously Tulip is haunted by her fears of the Saint of Killers and so on.
Where I was going is, now that the Saint of Killers has been buried in a swamp for the time being, we meet a new villain.
Yeah, what's that dude's name again?
I don't know. White suit guy, East German man who hunts down floating pigs.
He's great. That whole origin story was phenomenal. It was almost as good as Pickle Rick. Like, as far as like action storytelling of him auditioning for the job of working for these guys, and then right up to like a nice surprise at the end when it's just like, oh, now it's down to just you two. How are we gonna pick the winner? And then
I saw that coming. What was great is you see it coming. It's like, well, he's just gonna shoot the other guy. Like, we get it now.
I did not. I did not see that coming.
Oh, really? No,
for whatever reason.
Yeah, I know. There's two guns here. And he has pulled out no stops. He's going to shoot the other man. And when he does, you're like, okay, great. They've gotten more than they bargained for with this guy. What I did not see coming is him throwing his boss out the window.
Yes. And the whole idea of like just a floating pig at the beginning and him coming up with a clever solution of poisoning everyone. This is one of the things that Preacher does very, very well is pull some clever, I don't know, or not even clever, unusual stylistic tricks. Did you notice that the very end scene is Jesse is watching television with news reports about the floating pig and the poisoning of the water and all that? They're using two classic text-to-speech voices. Like, those are not actors talking at the end.
Oh, I didn't notice the text-to-speech part of it. That's interesting.
So you don't see the television. You just see him leaning back watching TV, and you hear what sounds like a news anchor and somebody out, a guest on there, and it's this very stilted conversation. We're like, but I don't understand. Why would it be that poisoned water would cause a pig to float? Tell me this. Are you a scientist? No, I am not. Well, then you should shut up.
No, now I remember. I thought only the guest was text-to-speech to disguise his identity.
99% certain that both of them are classic off-the-shelf voices, which I thought was a very unusual and almost a commentary on the robotic nature of 24-hour cable television, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Then we also, to get back to what you were alluding to earlier, we have the post Saint of Killers trauma and the bar where you make bets on whether you can get up fast enough from being shot in the chest. And of course, Cassidy, the perfect scam for that.
Yeah, that was great. I enjoyed the confusion of not understanding the difference, like the two guys who pick up the unconscious bodies from New Orleans all over the place, which, by the way, their electric vehicles make the exact Jetsons sound. I don't know if you picked up on that as well. The me 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 as the flying cars would make. That was great. Him getting caught up in there. The fact that they finally brought in a translator to have Dennis to have Cassidy's son.
Also, how great was it that the translator just happens to be a professor at Tulane who speaks perfectly reasonable translations of these like angry accusations from his son to Cassidy.
It was great. It was delightful. I did feel like Jesse's storyline was pretty soft, although I think that's fine because this was basically the origin story of our new favorite bad guy.
Right.
And they just needed to show us that there's trouble a-brewing when you sell 1% of your soul to someone.
Yeah, they kept Jesse on simmer for this episode, but there was enough else going on that was worth it that I'm fine with that too.
And I liked the fact that they dressed it up as part of the con, but they kept that other piece of the three-way love triangle with Cassidy. They kept it alive, where obviously she was giving him a kiss for the scam, but it obviously meant something different to Cassidy. Yeah, I was down for all of that.
And
man.
Jesse did not love it. Also, Tulip going back to the site of the scam and just uncovering we ripped you guys off. Do you want to try to get your money back? Because I've got issues to work out, and being shot in the chest seems like a good way to work these issues out.
Yeah, and weirdly, I believed it. I believed all of it. I thought it was great. Another really, really good episode from one of the strongest episodes or series out there.
From that, one of the strongest episodes from one of the strongest series to episode 4 of season 7 of Game of Thrones.
Well, if you want to slow it down here a bit, I guess we can.
Yeah. So really, most of this episode centers around Jon Snow looking at cave paintings. There's a dragon battle scene at the end too.
Okay. I know you're making a joke, but I felt it in that moment. The two of them alone in that cave looking at the cave drawings of the first men. In fact, I paused it and I turned to Bonnie. I'm like, this is how it happens. This is when they begin to fall in love and trust each other. And this is why they're going to end up there. There won't be a bending of the knee of one of them to the other. It's like, this is
out of the knee.
Yeah. Yeah. It was sweet and wonderful. Pretty wild to see all these reunions and have each of them feel so right. Like,
I'll be honest, the Arya return to Winterfell was way better than I expected. I'd gotten in an argument with Eileen because I was like, she's not going to go into Winterfell. She can change her face. She's going to sneak into Winterfell, and she's going to be in the background for an episode, just, sneaking around, being that weird guy in the background who's carrying a wheelbarrow. And Eileen's like, no, she's not. And of course, Eileen was entirely right. And I'm so glad that it was the way it was, because it was Arya being Arya right from the beginning. They got a beautiful scene near the crypt of their father. I love that they call attention to the fact of we should have got somebody to carve this who knew what he looked like, because this looks nothing like him. And then Arya and Brienne reuniting.
Yeah.
So Arya, I had forgotten this except for our rewatch. Arya and Brienne do meet out on the road, and Brienne tries to bring her back, but Arya runs away because Brienne is fighting the Hound.
Yep.
And so we get an echo of that with Arya training with Brienne and showing off everything she's learned from Syrio through the House of the Many-Faced God. And I love, who trained you? No one.
Yeah.
Just so good.
Yeah, and I don't know. I believed the reunion. I believe that there is a deep, abiding, love between Sansa and Arya, but also changed. They're both very changed people. It's very much a family reunion. And
one of the cool things was the dispute of Sansa and Arya in season 1 was, I want to be a lady and you just want to run around and fight, which is not ladylike. And we got that exact same argument, meaning entirely different things. You are Lady Stark of Winterfell.
Yeah.
And I want to be a warrior.
I've got a list. Right.
Yeah, and I've got a list. Exactly.
Talk about changed. Bran is like, he's just like, yeah, I remember Bran Stark. I remember a lot of things. You want this knife?
And I love the moment when he calls out, you get Littlefinger laying on his big slathers of BS and Bran just elegantly saying, chaos is a ladder. And Littlefinger realizing, wait, I said that to someone secretly once. How do you know that?
Wait, when does he say that?
I can't remember who, but it was a season 3 episode that I had just watched where he's speaking to someone and is like, chaos is a ladder. I think it's to Sansa, actually.
That is wonderful. That's wonderful. Man, I should go back and rewatch all those now.
It's so fun. I'm seeing so many things that I'd forgotten or didn't realize would fit in later. The other thing is when Dany has the discussion with Jon in the caves about bending the knee. It's like, you're the king. If you bend the knee, they'll follow you. And he's like, I can't do that. That's not how I got to where I am. It is almost note for note the conversation Jon has with Mance Rayder before they take Mance out and burn him at the stake.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. One last reunion between I keep wanting to say Reek. Reek and Jon Snow.
I mean, he's still kind of Reek down there.
Yeah. Euron?
No.
No?
Theon Greyjoy. Yeah. That's a moment. So much said with so little. Just here we are. It was great.
Theon very honestly asking about Sansa, right? Because that is what brought him back to being Theon, and he, I think, very much cares about what happened to Sansa. And Jon very clearly, saying, yeah, the fact that you rescued Sansa is the only reason I'm not killing you right this minute.
We were talking earlier today about how all of the costuming on all the badass ladies of Westeros is just on point. Like everybody looks so badass right now.
Yeah. All right. Anything left besides dragons to talk about?
Yes. How much I'm enjoying Sherlock Holmes's brother and his visit from the Iron Bank. Mycroft. Yeah.
Mycroft from the Iron Bank.
Yeah. That's great, but of course, the real star of the show is that epic battle at the end, with Bronn, the sellsword, do you know
Bronn is a knight of the Blackwater?
Oh, that's right.
Actually, yeah, he is no longer just a sellsword.
Yeah, and our confused feelings about Jaime Lannister. We like him, kinda. We didn't want to see him go. I was pretty sure we were about to see the death of Jaime Lannister. But I assume that's Bronn who tackles him. They don't really show who tackles him.
Pretty sure. We watched it like 3 times, and we were like 82% certain that that's Bronn that knocks him into the water. And he should be able to swim with one hand. My guess is next week, Jaime will be Daenerys Targaryen's prisoner.
Sure.
And we'll have a lovely reunion once again of the man who killed her father.
Hoo boy. Yeah, that's gonna be a moment. Was it clear to you where that battle took place? Because we do have this moment where Tyrion says taking the Red Keep, going to King's Landing would be the dumbest thing you could do. It would just prove you're just like everyone else. And yet that scene is like, well, we finally got the gold secured back at King's Landing, wherever we are right now. And
yeah, that's the only clues you have to go on is they're like, okay, we got the gold into King's Landing, but this loot train of ours is super spread out. We should consolidate it. So we are near King's Landing somewhere.
Yeah, which I don't know that thematically how different. I guess it's thematically different in that she did not involve there were no civilian casualties, and I guess that was the point of that conversation: is don't harm the small folk. And
yeah,
she
I'm a little confused by that too, because on the one hand, Lady Olenna said, "Don't listen to what men tell you," and so she heard Jon and Tyrion both say, "Don't go attack King's Landing," and she went and attacked. So there's that angle on it, but then she didn't attack King's Landing, did she?
Yeah. My guess is they'll clear that up, and my guess is maybe that's intentionally a little bit vague, but the production value, man, oh man, that production value was fantastic. That was like watching straight up Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, you should. I'm not finished watching it. There's a video called The Loot Train Attack. It's about 14 minutes long on the Game of Thrones YouTube channel from HBO, where they go through all of the things they had to do to make this, what parts were CG, what parts weren't. It is apparently the largest fire, like actual fire shoot that's ever been done.
I was wondering about that.
So much real fire. They didn't want to make it CG.
Well, and doing fire in CG is extremely difficult, period, but especially to make it look good during the day. Like, even if you watch the actual Lord of the Rings, it just looks so cartoonishly pasted on because you want it bright enough that it pops and shows up, but not so bright that that it looks cartoonish pasted on. So I was wondering how much of that is real fire. I totally believe that.
And they didn't have that entire field for the loot train, so they have to keep shooting it in parts, which means lighting things on fire, then dousing them, then lighting them back on fire in a different position. And they have a special paint that they were using to make things look charred after the fact.
Dude, that is a for a serious thing. We worked with some pyrotech people when we were doing hacking the system because, I'm sure the laws aren't that different wherever it was they shot this stuff. But it's like you can't just go lighting stuff on fire. Everything has to be very precisely, tightly controlled. You got to be able to turn the fire on and turn the fire off at the drop of a hat in production. So that's that's
Sam
awesome.
Conway is the name of the effects supervisor who is apparently a madman with fire, according to David Benioff of Game of Thrones.
That is great. I will make sure to check that out.
But getting back to in front of the scenes instead of behind the scenes, we also get a little bit of a long distance reunion of Tyrion seeing his brother. The last time Jaime and Tyrion met was when Jaime let him out of the Red Keep to escape across the water, across the Narrow Sea. And now Tyrion sees Jaime. And again, my supposition is that he will be captured by Daenerys's army, and the tables will have been turned, and Jaime will expect a little quid pro quo, I would think.
I would imagine Jaime is probably going to be less excited to see Tyrion than vice versa, given that Jaime's reward for freeing Tyrion was to have Tyrion immediately commit, not regicide, patricide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You killed our father, Tyrion. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I
forget that Jaime probably doesn't hate Tywin Lannister as much as the rest of us did.
Yeah, being the favorite son of a rich, wealthy, powerful.
I mean, he didn't love him, but he loved him more. He loved him some.
Yeah. Do you mind the sped up pace that we're getting as we get closer to the end?
No, I don't. I don't mind it at all.
How much time do you think passes from the first frame of this episode till the last?
I don't know. I don't even care. I'll be honest. I don't. I will only make myself miserable worrying about that sort of thing.
I think that's interesting. It felt like 2 months-ish. 2 months, give or take.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't see anything that raises a red flag of saying that couldn't have happened or that's out of order.
Oh no.
So I don't really worry about it too much.
But
2 months seems reasonable.
Yeah, I'm certain they figured out all of that stuff, and I trust them, and that's the nice thing.
I know they did. Yeah. I just haven't messed with it. Oh man, Drogon. Eileen was literally shaking. She had read that Drogon gets stabbed. She didn't tell me this.
Hold on, was it Drogon or Dracarys? I thought it was Dracarys.
Drogon. It was Drogon that she was writing. Oh, Dracarys is the name of the command to Spitfire.
Okay. Oh, that's why she was saying that. Okay.
That's why she says Dracarys, because that's like
Got it.
sit.
Got it. But that's the big bad. Well, and plus, what's funny is how formidable did that? What do they call it? The Spitfire. That thing looked fairly formidable until it shot, and it just kind of looked like a stick. And it's like
the first time he dodges it, I'm like, oh, that's not gonna matter. That's not gonna hurt him at all.
And it pokes him, and I was just like, I can't believe for any amount of time I was worried about this crossbow.
No,
That's
exactly where I was going. Eileen was all worried, and then they miss, and she's like, oh, well, maybe he'll be okay. And then they hit him, and there's the dramatic fall because he's stunned. But then when he lands, she's like, oh, well, he'll be fine.
Yes. Yeah.
And Drogon has been hit before in the fighting pits. So it's not even the first time we've seen the dragons recover from something like that. The one thing we were wondering is like why Viserion and Rhaegal, the other two dragons, weren't there.
I was wondering that as well. My guess is they need
CG budget.
No, I think story-wise, I think thematically, we want to see riders on dragons. And
yeah.
My guess,
sure.
And they've already set up, like, it's clear that nothing in the whole universe would be more meaningful to Tyrion than to experience riding on a dragon. I'll
think
bet
it's quite
money.
possible that we find out that Tyrion was fathered by a Targaryen. There are lots of things in the lore that and even in the show that imply that maybe his mother was in a sexual relationship, consenting or not, with Aerys, and obviously Jon Snow is a Targaryen, so that could be your three Targaryens. Even if Tyrion's not a Targaryen, I think he rides the dragon. I just think that happens.
That
no
will be
what.
poetic, and I don't care if we've exactly predicted the ending. It'll be so satisfying to see. I'm really excited.
Yeah. I think next week.
Turns out, I don't know if this is a joke you're making, Bryce, but were you saying Hot Pie gets a dragon?
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere.
Why not? Give that little guy a dragon.
Hot Pie was a Targaryen the whole way.
That's amazing.
No, I can't wait till Bran finally gets a chance to tell Jon that his dad was Rhaegar Targaryen.
I guess
because that's going to happen.
He definitely knows at this point. And
Bran knows. Bran's the one that knows, and he keeps saying, "I need to talk to Jon."
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure that's why.
Well, and also that also would make sense that he wouldn't be freaking out over it because he also knows he's seen the future and he knows that he'll get to talk to Jon. He'll be like, exactly. I do. The part where I talk to Jon needs to happen, guys.
Has
just
that happened yet? I guess that hasn't happened, so I still need to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's finish up with Firefly, Shindig. Kind of the way you were talking about the train robbery episode is the way I feel about Shindig. Some of my favorite moments in Firefly are in this episode, but this is probably my least favorite episode overall.
No kidding. I adored it because it was the one. It was petty and cheap and superficial and hugely character driven, and also it had the guy who played Dr. Giggles or Darkman or whatever. He was also in LA Law. It doesn't matter. But the guy whose cattle they need to move.
Yeah. Okay. He looks like the father of the guy from Always Sunny who is the brother that
one of the
who was later
twins.
in Mr. Robot. And
boy, we're just the best at our job. We're really the best at knowing the names of anyone.
But yeah, I mean, there's the Kaylee getting the dress and putting the dress up.
Kaylee is the star of this episode, right?
And her sitting down and talking about the engines of the different models of spaceships with the guys gathered around her because she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, well, and what's great is they didn't belabor that whole thing. They showed her getting teased like it's the high school prom by the mean girls, and then the next time we see her, she's fallen in with the right crowd, and she's making her way. She's the belle of the ball among the people who the gearheads in the bunch. And also, this was an exploration of the strange dynamic of. I think it was important that they explain. How culturally valued companions are and how Inara specifically is among the best of the best. And so, of course, the companion would know how to sword fight and will do her best to teach. And I was afraid that the end sword fight wouldn't hold up. that it would look like unbelievable, but it's just enough of a low down dirty tactic, and it's just enough of suckering him in to overstepping his bounds that I believed all of it. What I did not believe is how clearly noon it was, and the fog machines they're running cleverly just hidden right behind all of these trees. Like, that shoot looked like a hot disaster.
I did not want to eat the cheese off that craft services table.
I mean, my guess is they ran later than they expected. They had trouble. The lighting was not correct. They're like, but it's supposed to look like morning. Like, just run the fog machines. It'll be fine.
Morning fog. It's going to work. It's going to work.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I think another one of my favorite moments of this episode is when the trope of you'll be blackballed, I'll see to it. And instead of like, good luck, try, it's like, no, that's actually not how it works. I blackball you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, and they do, as all good television surprises, they laid it out in front of us the entire time long, but only at the end did they revealize, that's my new favorite word. Do they reveal to us that, no, this is just how valued companions are, that it's a big, big deal.
Yeah. But like I said, it's a Firefly episode, and I love them all, and there are parts of them that I think are amazing. So I'm really enjoying rewatching these, because a lot of times I rewatch Firefly, like I said, like on an airplane, or if I'm bored in a hotel room or something while traveling, because I know I'll like it. And it's fun to sit down and watch it critically, to say, okay, well, let me pay attention. I'm not just watching it, in the background or as part of a way to kill time. And so I'm really glad we're doing this.
Yeah, me too, dude.
That's it for Spoilerin Time. Thanks everybody for watching and supporting us on Patreon. Don't forget, we need more patrons to hit that number of 185, where we can start breaking these Spoilerin Times up into the various parts so that you can access them by show if you just want to go back and hear the older episodes based around the shows we talk about. So thanks for supporting us. And if you haven't yet, we'd love to get just $1 from you at patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll spoil you next time.
Bye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.